For years, Israel and Iran fought a secret war, a clandestine struggle waged in the shadows. It was a conflict defined by spies, sabotage, and proxy battles, not open armies clashing on traditional battlefields. Each side maneuvered, probing for weaknesses, always careful to avoid a direct confrontation. Israel frequently struck Iranian targets in places like Syria, aiming to disrupt the flow of weapons and personnel. Iran, in turn, armed groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon, using them to pressure Israel with rocket attacks and border skirmishes. This shadow war was dangerous, but contained, a deadly chess match with unspoken rules and carefully calculated risks. Both sides knew the potential for escalation was ever present. Both sides generally avoided direct conflict, understanding that a single misstep, a single miscalculation, could ignite a regional disaster, drawing in other nations and destabilizing the entire area. But in May 2025, everything changed, shattering the fragile equilibrium that had been maintained for so long. Israel, increasingly convinced that Iran was dangerously close to building a nuclear bomb, a red line they could not allow to be crossed, decided that covert action, the subtle game of shadows, was no longer enough to prevent what they saw as an existential threat. The Israeli government made the momentous decision to launch a direct public attack on Iran, a move that would irrevocably alter the course of the conflict. The world watched in stunned silence as the conflict burst from the shadows, exploding into open warfare with devastating speed and force. The old limits vanished, the carefully constructed boundaries erased. Now Israel and Iran were fighting directly, on their own soil, with all the resources at their disposal. This was unprecedented, and far more dangerous than anything the region had seen before. The region, already teetering on the brink of chaos, was pushed into a new, perilous phase, with the potential for widespread devastation. The quiet, deadly game of espionage and sabotage became a loud, unpredictable battle for survival. No one could predict how far it would go, or who else might be drawn into the widening conflict as alliances shifted and old rivalries resurfaced. The stakes had never been higher, with the future of the Middle East hanging in the balance. The world held its breath, watching with a mixture of fear and fascination, knowing that history was being made, and that the consequences would be profound. The shadow war was over, relegated to the history books. The real war, with all its terrifying potential, had begun, and the consequences, both intended and unintended, would be felt far beyond the borders of the Middle East, reshaping the global landscape for years to come. Israel's opening move, a daring and calculated gamble, was Operation Rising Lion. This operation was designed to cripple Iran's strategic capabilities and send a clear message. Under the cloak of darkness, before dawn painted the sky, stealth jets streaked into Iranian airspace, undetected and deadly. Their mission? Targeting Iran's most sensitive nuclear sites and critical missile facilities. The success of this initial strike was paramount. The attack was precise, devastating in its impact, and unmistakable in its intent. A clear and present message to Tehran that nowhere within its borders was truly safe from Israeli reach. Israeli bombs rained down on uranium enrichment plants, the heart of Iran's nuclear ambitions, and key IRGC military bases vital to their defense. Explosions lit up the night sky, a fiery testament to the operation's success. Iran's nuclear program, the source of so much regional tension, was set back by months, perhaps even years of rebuilding and recovery. But the psychological blow, the dent to Iran's prestige, was even greater. Israel had unequivocally proven it could penetrate Iran's sophisticated air defenses, a feat many thought impossible. For the first time in a long and simmering conflict, the war was direct, a head-to-head confrontation, no longer fought through proxies, shadowy allies, or in distant, deniable lands. The world watched as Israel demonstrated its willingness to take enormous risks, defying international norms, all to stop what it perceived as Iran's relentless pursuit of nuclear ambitions. The audacious attack forced Iran's hand. It had to respond decisively, or risk appearing weak, vulnerable, and diminished, both at home and on the global stage. The established rules of the conflict, the unspoken agreements, had been shattered overnight. Operation Rising Lion was not just a military strike, a calculated act of aggression. It was a definitive turning point, a line drawn in the sand. The war, previously fought in the shadows, had entered a new, far more dangerous and unpredictable chapter. The pressing question now: how would Iran answer this bold challenge? What form would their inevitable retaliation take? Would the already volatile conflict spiral out of control, igniting a full-blown regional catastrophe. The world held its breath, waiting anxiously for Iran's next move, knowing the stakes were impossibly high. The implications of this conflict, once regional, were now undeniably global. The fuse was lit and the world braced for the explosion. Stopping Iran's nuclear program is Israel's main goal, but there's more at play. Some believe Israel wants regime change in Tehran, not just destroyed centrifuges. By striking hard, Israel hopes to weaken Iran's leaders, fueling unrest and protest inside the country. The strategy: make the regime look vulnerable, encourage internal dissent, and maybe even collapse the government. But this is a high-risk gamble. Attacking another country's leadership can backfire, uniting people against a foreign enemy. It could also drag the region into a longer, bloodier war. Israel's actions raise the stakes, making peace harder to achieve. The war is no longer just about bombs, it's about the future of Iran itself. The outcome is dangerously unpredictable. In a dramatic turn of events, Iran struck back. They unleashed a massive barrage of missiles and drones, a coordinated assault designed to penetrate Israeli airspace. Hundreds were launched from deep inside Iran, a clear signal of their resolve and capability. The attack lit up the night sky with a terrifying display of firepower, as the projectiles raced toward Israel, a direct challenge to their security. The goal was clear: overwhelm Israel's Iron Dome and other layered defenses, pushing them to their absolute limit. The attack was meant to prove Iran could hit back directly, deterring future actions. Fortunately, most of the missiles were intercepted by the Iron Dome, but a few managed to break through the defensive shield, ultimately damaging a military base located in southern Israel. While the physical damage was relatively limited in scope, the psychological impact on the Israeli population was undeniably huge. For the first time in decades, Iran had directly attacked Israel from its own soil, a significant escalation. Tehran's message was clear and resolute: we will not be intimidated by any means. The world watched with bated breath as the conflict took a dangerous turn, with each side now openly crossing previously established red lines. Iran's response served as both a stark warning to its adversaries and a crucial test of the effectiveness and resilience of Israel's air defenses. The conflict was now undeniably out in the open, no longer confined to the shadows or distant battlefields. Both nations had now unequivocally demonstrated their willingness to escalate the conflict to new heights. The next move in this dangerous game could very well decide the fate of the entire region, with far-reaching consequences. The world braced itself, anxiously awaiting what might come next in this volatile situation. Iran now faces a perilous dilemma: respond too weakly and risk humiliation and more Israeli attacks, hit back too hard, and risk a devastating war with Israel and possibly the United States. Iran's leaders must show strength without triggering all-out disaster. Their missile barrage was a calculated show of force enough to deter, not enough to provoke U.S. intervention. Every move is a gamble, with enormous consequences for Iran's regime and its people. The economy is already battered. A wider war could be catastrophic. Iran must walk a tightrope, projecting power but avoiding destruction. The future of the regime and the region hangs in the balance. The war isn't just Israel versus Iran. Iran's proxies, Hezbollah in Lebanon, militias in Iraq and Syria, wait on the sidelines. Hezbollah, with its arsenal of rockets, could open a second front at any moment. So far, Tehran holds them back, wary of triggering a full regional war. These groups give Iran options. They can strike Israel indirectly, spreading chaos and pressure. Their presence is a constant threat, making the conflict far more complex. If unleashed, the war could engulf Lebanon, Syria, and beyond. For now, the proxies wait. But their involvement could escalate the conflict overnight. The region sits on a knife's edge. One order from Tehran could change everything. The greatest fear is nuclear escalation. Israel's attacks may push Iran to race for a bomb, believing it's the only way to survive. Iran could leave the Non-Proliferation Treaty, expel inspectors, and build a weapon in secret. This would trigger a global crisis and possibly more military strikes. The conflict could spiral: more attacks, more countries drawn in, even U.S. involvement. Or both sides might pause, realizing further escalation is too risky. Secret talks could follow, or the war could simmer in uneasy silence. Unexpected events like political upheaval in Iran could change everything. The world watches, anxious. Oil prices, refugees, and the threat of nuclear war hang over everyone. Diplomats scramble to prevent catastrophe. The choices Israel and Iran make now will shape the future of the Middle East. and the world. The stakes could not be higher.